Have you ever stopped for a moment and seriously asked yourself why you believe in the religion you follow today? Have you ever questioned the idea of God that you were taught as a child? Most people grow up accepting their religion as a natural part of life. Their parents teach them what to believe, their family follows certain traditions, their community repeats the same teachings, and eventually those beliefs become so familiar that people stop asking where they came from or whether they are actually true. But familiarity is not the same thing as truth. Something does not become true simply because we have heard it since childhood. And something does not become false simply because someone else questions it. The real question is whether we have personally searched for the truth. Imagine for a moment that you had been born into a completely different family, in a completely different country, surrounded by people who followed a completely different religion. From your earliest childhood, you would probably have been taught their beliefs, their prayers, their scriptures, their traditions, and their understanding of God. You would have heard the same things repeatedly. Your parents would have told you that their religion was the right path. Your community would have reinforced those beliefs. And as you grew older, you might have developed a deep emotional connection to those teachings. Now ask yourself honestly, would you automatically believe those teachings simply because you were born there? And if your answer is yes, then consider the possibility that another person born somewhere else could be doing exactly the same thing with a completely different religion. This should make us pause and think. Our birthplace can influence our language, our culture, our customs, our food, our clothing, and even the religion we are introduced to first. But truth itself should not depend on geography. If there is one true God, then that truth should remain true whether a person is born in Pakistan, India, Saudi Arabia, America, Africa, Europe, or anywhere else in the world. So why are we sometimes so confident that the religion we inherited must automatically be the correct one? Perhaps because questioning inherited beliefs can be uncomfortable. It can feel like questioning our parents. It can feel like questioning our identity. It can feel like questioning our entire community. Sometimes people are afraid of what others will say if they begin asking difficult questions. They worry that people will call them disrespectful, rebellious, confused, or even bad. But there is an important difference between questioning something with arrogance and questioning something with sincerity. A person who sincerely asks, "Is this really true?" is not necessarily attacking anyone. They may simply be trying to understand reality. In fact, if God is truly the source of truth, then sincere investigation should not be something to fear. We should be able to ask difficult questions without hatred, without insults, and without blindly accepting whatever answer we are given. Think about how we approach other important things in life. If someone offered you a business opportunity and told you that you could make a huge amount of money, would you simply believe them because your parents had believed them? Probably not. You would ask questions. You would look for evidence. You would compare information. You would investigate the person making the claim. If someone told you that a particular medicine was necessary for you, you might want to know how it works and what evidence supports it. If someone told you that a certain historical event happened, you might examine historical records. Yet when it comes to the biggest questions of existence, who created us? Why are we here? Does God exist? What happens after death? What is the true religion? Many people never investigate deeply. They simply accept the answer they received as children. Why? Perhaps because religious beliefs are connected to powerful emotions, family relationships, culture, and identity. But truth deserves something more than emotional attachment. Ask yourself, do I believe this because I have investigated it, or because I was taught it? Do I believe this because I found convincing evidence, or because everyone around me believes it? Have I ever seriously studied the beliefs of people outside my own religious tradition? Have I ever listened to arguments from people who disagree with me without immediately assuming they are wrong? Have I ever asked whether my understanding of God makes logical sense? Have I ever compared different religious claims about revelation, scripture, morality, history, and the nature of God? These questions are not designed to force you toward one particular answer. They are designed to encourage you to think. Because perhaps the greatest responsibility a human being has is the responsibility to search for truth honestly. Imagine reaching the end of your life and realizing that you spent decades defending beliefs that you never personally examined. Wouldn't you wish you had investigated more deeply? Wouldn't you want to know whether your beliefs were actually based on truth rather than habit? We should not be afraid of discovering something true. If our beliefs are correct, sincere investigation should strengthen them. If some of our beliefs are mistaken, then discovering that mistake gives us an opportunity to correct it. Either way, honest questioning can be valuable. But there is another important point. Questioning your inherited religion does not mean you have to immediately abandon it. There is no need to jump from one belief to another simply because someone presented an emotional argument. The goal should not be to replace one form of blind acceptance with another. The goal should be to develop a belief based on sincere examination. Take your time, read, listen, compare, think, ask difficult questions, examine evidence, and be willing to say, "I don't know," when you genuinely don't know. Saying, "I don't know," can sometimes be more intellectually honest than pretending to have certainty. If God exists and if God wants human beings to recognize truth, then surely honest seekers are more valuable than people who simply repeat words without understanding them. We should also remember that different religions make different claims about God. Some describe God in very different ways. Some emphasize one God, some multiple divine beings, some different manifestations of divinity, and some philosophical understandings of ultimate reality. Religious traditions also differ about revelation, prophets, scriptures, salvation, morality, and what happens after death. These differences matter. We cannot simply assume that all contradictory claims are equally true. If two religions make completely different claims about a particular subject, then at least one of those claims must be mistaken, unless the disagreement is only apparent. That means the seeker has a serious responsibility. Investigate the claims. Don't simply ask, "What feels comfortable to me?" Ask, "What is actually true?" Don't only search for arguments that support what you already believe. Search for the strongest arguments on both sides. This is difficult because human beings naturally prefer information that confirms their existing beliefs. But if our goal is truth, we should be willing to challenge our own assumptions. Perhaps one of the most powerful questions you can ask is this: what evidence could convince me that I am wrong? If the answer is nothing, then perhaps you are not investigating, you are defending. A genuine search for truth requires humility. It requires the courage to admit that we may have misunderstood something. It requires the willingness to distinguish between what our family taught us, what our culture taught us, what our community taught us, and what we have personally concluded after careful investigation. Your parents may have sincerely believed what they taught you. Your grandparents may have sincerely believed it too. That deserves respect, but their sincerity alone cannot prove that every belief they held was objectively true. The same applies to every human being. A person can be sincere and still be mistaken. Therefore, respect for our parents and ancestors does not require us to stop thinking. We can appreciate where we came from while still asking questions about where the truth actually leads. And perhaps this is where the journey becomes truly personal. At some point, you have to stop asking, "What does my family believe?" and start asking, "What do I believe, and why?" Not simply what you were told. Not simply what your community expects. Not simply what you fear questioning. What do you personally believe after honestly investigating the question? If you believe in God, why? What convinced you? If you believe your religion is true, what are the strongest reasons for that conclusion? Can you explain those reasons clearly to someone who does not already share your assumptions? And if you cannot, perhaps that is not a reason for shame. It may simply be an invitation to learn more. We live in a world where information is more accessible than ever before. People can read books, study history, listen to scholars, compare translations, examine philosophical arguments, and learn about religious traditions from people who actually practice them. There is no shortage of information. The challenge is learning how to distinguish reliable information from misinformation, sincere scholarship from propaganda, and evidence from emotional persuasion. So don't let a random social media video decide your worldview. Don't let one angry critic decide it either. And don't let one emotional preacher decide it for you. Investigate the strongest arguments you can find. Ask questions respectfully. Study primary sources where possible. Learn the historical context. Understand what believers themselves actually claim rather than relying only on opponents to describe their beliefs. And then make your judgment carefully. Perhaps you will come out of that journey with stronger confidence in the religion you inherited. Perhaps you will discover that some of your previous assumptions were wrong. Perhaps you will become more thoughtful about your faith. Whatever happens, the important thing is that your beliefs are becoming your own rather than simply remaining inherited ideas. Because there is a difference between being born into a religion and choosing to believe that religion after sincere investigation. One is an accident of birth. The other is a conscious intellectual and spiritual decision. So today, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Have I ever genuinely questioned the religion and the concept of God that I inherited? Not with anger, not with hatred, not with the intention of insulting anyone, but with sincerity. Have I ever sat alone and asked, what if I am wrong? Have I ever asked, what if there is more truth than what I was taught? Have I ever asked, if God exists, what would God actually expect from me? And perhaps most importantly, have I asked, am I willing to follow the truth wherever it leads, even if it challenges my existing beliefs? That may be one of the hardest questions a human being can ask. But it may also be one of the most important. Because your life is not merely about inheriting beliefs. It is about understanding why you believe what you believe. Don't be afraid of honest questions. Don't confuse questioning with hatred. Don't confuse tradition with evidence. And don't confuse certainty with truth. Search sincerely. Think carefully. Listen to different perspectives. Examine the evidence. And remain humble enough to change your mind if the truth demands it. Perhaps the religion you inherited is true. Perhaps you will investigate it and become even more convinced. But if it is true, shouldn't you want to know why it is true? And if you discover that something else is true, shouldn't you have the courage to follow the truth? In the end, the most important question may not be, what religion was I born into? The most important question may be, did I ever sincerely search for the truth? Because we only get one life, and the questions of God, existence, purpose, and truth are far too important to leave completely to inheritance. So begin the search, ask the questions, examine the answers, and most importantly, be honest with yourself.